know what we came to do. Hey, you know what we came to do. Look, I'm in a league of my own. Y'all need to leave it alone. I'ma just eat everything. I'ma just leave you the bones. Call it an even exchange. There ain't no need to explain. Yeah, it should be overstood. Like when I hop on a plane and I fly over your hood. Y'all should be knocking on wood. Don't make me go against the grain. I ate my Wheaties, I'm good.
UCLA. So you got to keep it level. It's like NFL, it's a salary cap. You got to keep it a level playing field, and it's not a level playing field right now. So you're gonna see the same people in the college football championship series every year. People that's giving the most. So no, I'm not a fan of it because it's basically turned all lower levels into Jucos. Where we develop players, some they develop. Somewhere else. Get an NIL deal and go play somewhere else.
Welcome back, college football fans. It's your boy Kelly Flicks. I'm back for another episode of HBCU Flicks. We got an action-packed episode. As you just saw, Coach Connell Maynard dropped some bombshell comments this past week about HBCUs and FCS schools in contrast in the transfer portal compared to Power 5 schools, FBS schools. He has some issue with it. We'll get into that on top of the show. So we'll talk about his comments about glorified junior colleges. This is actually something that Coach G. Huggins has been talking about. Then another topic, we got to get into some top HBCU position coaches. So shout out to Ty. She sounded the whistle on this, so I'm going to hop in on it. We're going to talk about 3 different coaches that are top HBCU position coaches and have been doing it for some time now. Then we're getting into Isaiah Pedack. He decommits from Florida A&M because of personal reasons. Looks to stay back home in Dallas. So could we see a possible move to Prairie View A&M? We'll take a look at it. Then lastly, we'll try a new segment, 2-minute drill. Getting to everything I couldn't get into. We'll cram it all into one nice 2-minute drill to end the show. So off the top of the dome, off the top, we got to get into this glorified Jucos. So Coach Connell Maynard talked about glorified Jucos, what he feels like is going on in the current landscape for college football today. And I will be honest, this is something that a lot of us have been talking about behind closed doors when it comes to HBCU football, recruiting, the transfer portal, if it helps or hinders players and programs. And quite honestly, it has hindered HBCU football more than it has helped. We got to keep it real. If you're unfamiliar with Box Tour All-Americans, at the end of the season, Donnell Ware comes up with a great list of HBCU All-Americans and puts it up. This is mixed of the SWAC, CIAA, MEAC, SIAC, and even independent schools. So of these Box Tour All-Americans from 2022, just last year, there have been 12 transfers from an HBCU to a FBS team, whether it be Power 5 or Greater 5. Those players are all listed here. As All-Americans and honorable mentions, these players still chose to take their talents somewhere else. So when it comes to Coach Connell Maynard making accusations that the transfer portal turns FCS and under into glorified Jucos, he makes the point under the premise that our best players are leaving. Like, they have years of eligibility left and they are deciding to leave. They decide that they don't want to stay here for another year, 2 years, and instead they'd rather go transfer. A great example of this would be Bayshore Tootin, running back from North Carolina A&T, who I thought was the best HBCU running back in the nation last year. He ran for about 1,300 yards, had over 12 touchdowns, decides to transfer to Virginia Tech right after the season. Just walks right out the door. After a great year at North Carolina A&T, we've seen the stars, Jerry Rice Award winner Shedeur Sanders, quarterback of Jackson State, transfers with his father, Coach Prime, to University of Colorado. We have seen this time and time again. You can even talk about Isaiah Hamilton transferring from Texas Southern to the University of Houston. 2 colleges that aren't very far from each other at all. In today's climate, a lot of these players don't just see Division I football as the go-to. FBS football, Power 5 football in particular, is what all of these student athletes are striving for. This isn't an HBCU problem. This is a FCS versus FBS problem. More players want to play in the FBS rather than the FCS for a multitude of reasons. You've got to talk about the bigger budgets. You got to talk about the nicer facilities. You've got to talk about the bigger facilities. You got to talk about the bigger stadiums. You got to talk about the more player support staff. You're talking about staffs of plus 15 people, including at least 12 coaches. Some of these staffs on FCS can be pretty small. It can be 7 coaches, 9 coaches, when in fact that's not enough to honestly serve these players, and these coaches do as best they can to do that, even coaching possibly multiple positions at times. So when you see this move, right, players go from FCS to FBS, it's a choice. It's a decision. It's a decision based around the fact that they think that going to a FBS institution is going to give them a better chance at playing at the next level. And I'll be quite honest, I don't think it does. I really don't think it does. I think going to an FBS institution, I think it'll probably be very interesting to check out the stats on how high your chances are getting drafted or playing in the NFL after playing at least, attending a Power 5 school for at least 3 years. I'm not sure if this 1 year, one and done type of move situation helps a FCS player that much in their draft stock to help them get drafted now. I don't think that your top FCS receiver going to a top FBS school and posting up 600, 700 receiving yards necessarily helps them in their draft stock. I think it's kind of shown that it hasn't. I think some of these things actually may hinder them. Another 1,000-yard season may actually help you a little bit more. So this is a problem across all of FCS. This isn't an HBCU problem. All these schools have been turned into what people would like to call glorified junior colleges, whereas it's only a pit stop. It's somewhere they stop, right? And Coach Connell Maynard, of anybody, would know this quite well. He coached a guy named Nathaniel Tank Dill. If you don't know, he was drafted in like the second round by the Houston Texans this past year. In 2018, he was a member of the Outlaw Receivers, Alabama A&M. He won the MVP of the Gulf Coast Challenge. So if anybody knows about players using his school or using a school as a glorified junior college, he's kind of seen this. Even if we'll talk about the receiving core, Alabama A&M, but even of the receiving core, these outlaw receivers, we have 2 receivers, Odu Hilaire and Abdul Fatai, both great friends. Coach Connell Maynard talked about in the interview. The first year, 2021, after 2021, they have great years. Both have 1,900-yard seasons. After that year, one player leaves. They go to Bowling Green. Next year's the homeboy. He stays at Alabama A&M. The other one's at Bowling Green. 2022 comes around. It comes and goes. Now both of them are at Bowling Green. It's not ironic. It's something that a lot of these student athletes want to do. They want to make that move. They have a guy out there they can talk to and make them feel a little bit more comfortable. It might make them even more likely to make that type of move. So this is a problem going across FCS. It's going to take some time to try to fix something like this. And quite honestly, the only fix is to play and be FBS. It's kind of hard to compete with the big dogs without the guns. You need the guns to fight with the big dogs, quite honestly. And a lot of times these FCS schools just don't have it, which is understandable. So from there, let's get into our top HBCU coaches. So one of the first coaches I would like to speak about, well, actually I'll talk about all of them first. We're going to talk about South Carolina State's defensive line coach, Coach David Blanchard. Great defensive line coach. He's been coaching with South Carolina State for about 20 years, been the defensive line coach for about 16 years. Another great coach, Coach DeJuan Taylor, wide receiver coach, offensive coordinator for Alabama A&M. He's the originator of this outlaw receiving group, as I know it, and he has put together a very great lineage of receivers at Alabama A&M, and it dates all the way back to 2018. And then lastly, Coach Milton Patterson, the defensive line coach of Florida A&M. He came up with guys Savion Williams, he came up with Isaiah Land, all those guys. So firstly, we're going to talk about Coach David Blanchard. Coach David Blanchard has been at South Carolina State since 2007. He's the OG. He's a vet. He's the right-hand man to Coach Buddy Pugh. These guys work together. Now, what's so impressive about what Coach Blanchard has done, he's able to put together great duos on the defensive line. And his first duo that he put together was Andrew Carter and Alex Glover. Andrew Carter entered South Carolina State in 2009. Alex Glover entered in 2010. These two guys came together as a tandem and wreaked havoc amongst the MEAC, right? In the latter 2 years of their career, the South Carolina State Bulldogs went 8-4 and 9-4. They were trending forward as they left. Now, just speaking about that, didn't really get to see many highlights from these guys. Hard to find those highlights, mostly based upon numbers and stats and credentials, the way I kind of did this for the older guys. So Andrew Carter, he in 2012, he had around 41 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Alex Glover in 2012 had 43 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. They were menaces off the edge, man. They made a difference. So, in saying that, making a difference, they set the tone. From those two guys, they passed the torch to one of the greatest defensive linemen to ever play at South Carolina State, which is Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave had one of his best years in 2014, but he started all 47 games while he was at South Carolina State. All 47. He was the guy. From 2012 to 2015, he was the best player on the South Carolina State defensive line. He accumulated 200 tackles, 62 tackles for loss during this time period, 37 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. He was all over the place. If you don't know, Javon Hargrave is an all-pro defensive lineman in the NFL right now. From Javon Hargrave, you move on to Tyrell Goodwin. Tyrell Goodwin was an absolute menace. He was passed the torch and given the torch at kind of an odd time, right? 2015, 2019. And in this time, Tyrell Goodwin really made good on, Coach David Blanchard's defensive line. He ensured that it was still a top group. Now, Tyrell Goodwin in 2015 had 39 tackles, but dig this, 15 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and fumble recovery. He did his thing, was all MEAC. All these guys are all MEAC. First team. Top, consistently, first team. And then we go on from those two guys to Patrick Goebelt and my guy Jablonski Green. Patrick Goebelt and Jablonski Green within the past 2 years have really been a showcase for what South Carolina State can do. Just go watch the Celebration Bowl back in 2021. They had a coming out party. That year, Jablonski Green goes for 19.5 tackles for loss at defensive line. Patrick Goebelt goes for 11.5 tackles for loss. This past year, Patrick Goebelt just went for 9.5 tackles for loss with 30 tackles in a pretty bad year for South Carolina State. Coach David Blanchard continues to put out talent, put out dogs year after year after year. He retains talent and he develops these guys into better players. Most of these players on this list I think all of the players on this list were at the school for at least 3 years. And it paid off. It honestly paid off. These guys were all MEAC. They were top defensive linemen in their class, and they have a chance at the next level because of that. Under Coach David Blanchard's tutelage, you're going to get a chance at the next level. That's for sure. So, going from South Carolina State, I want to get into we'll stick on defensive lines since we're talking defensive lines. So here we go. We'll talk about Coach Milton Patterson. Now, with Coach Milton Patterson, he has very quickly, developed one of the best defensive line groups in the SWAC in the past couple of years. Coach Milton Patterson entered into Florida A&M in 2021. He's only been there for the better part of 2 years. But in those 2 years, he's accumulated talent and gotten the most out of these guys. He went and got a big transfer out of Tennessee to start things up, right? Savion Williams, that was one of his actual first moves, right? I didn't really want to mention Isaiah Land because Isaiah Land came to Florida A&M in 2018. Coach Milton Patterson was defensive line coach until 2021, right? He was under Coach Milton Patterson's tutelage, but the first move that Coach Milton Patterson made in 2021 was Savion Williams, right? Savion Williams and what he did at FAMU was pretty. He did his job. He came in and did what was right. He knew that he had Isaiah Land, Buck Buchanan Award winner right there next to him, and he just simply did his job and had great numbers. He ended up ending the year with 30 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks at defensive tackle, right? So Savion Williams, absolute dog for Florida A&M, and continued to make plays. Looked great under Coach Milton Patterson's tutelage. And then next up, of course, we all know Isaiah Land, right? One of the best pass rushers out of the SWAC in the past couple of years. Been the most talked about. He won the Buck Buchanan Award in 2021 after he recorded 22 tackles for loss in one season. Right? So in 2021, Coach Milton Patterson was the coach, defensive line coach, every day going at it for FAMU. FAMU and Isaiah Land built a beautiful relationship. He even entered the transfer portal and returned to Florida A&M, despite offers from national champion Georgia and amongst them other SEC schools. I think that was also a little bit of some Coach Milton Patterson. Now, going from there, we still have another dog in there in Gentle Hunt, an undersized defensive tackle that has been doing his thing for FAMU for the better part of 3 years. Gentle Hunt has been able to stay healthy and has been one of the consistent rocks inside of this interior defensive line at Florida A&M. He's been one of the guys that have been so consistent to allow other defensive linemen to make plays. Because really, when you're a defensive tackle, you're going to take on them double teams. You're going to. You have to be in your gap. You have to play by the rules, and if you don't, your team suffers because of it. So Gentle Hunt plays the game the right way. Gentle Hunt last year ended up having 30 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. And then lastly, Kamari Stevens. Kamari Stevens is the new guy, right? He is next up for this defensive line. This should be his year. I think that at FAMU, Kamari Stevens is primed to be the guy at defensive line. Last year, he had 77. He had 20 tackles, 13 tackles for loss. He had 10 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 interception. Kamari Stevens is all over the place. Another dog under Coach Milton Patterson. I think there's no better way to explain how good a coach is than to show his players. When it comes to what a coach can do and how a coach can develop, the best results he has is his players. That's all he has. And with these players, you have some absolute dogs, and it's no mistake that they're all this good. Coach Milton Patterson has been coaching these guys up. He chooses these guys to come to this school for a reason, and he makes good on what he wants. That's what you really need out of a position coach that's going to make a difference in your football program. So, lastly, we're going to bring up Alabama A&M Coach Dwayne Taylor. Let's make sure I got the thumbnail, though. I don't think so. So I'll get the thumbnail for you guys. Just a second. But Coach Dwayne Taylor and what he's doing at Alabama A&M is pretty interesting because, for one, he's actually not even – I think he's coaching again, but he was not coaching at Alabama A&M during the spring. During the spring, Coach Dwayne Taylor was actually an offensive coordinator for the XFL. Coach Connell Maynor was fine with him going and doing this achievement and getting that type of experience in the professional ranks during the offseason, and allowed him to coach in the XFL and then return to Alabama A&M to coach receivers and offensive coordinate when he gets back. So the XFL season has been over. It's long been over. Finished a good while ago. And now I believe Coach Dwayne Taylor is back on campus. Nah, see, that's not it. Sorry about that, y'all. Don't worry about nothing. Get these up for y'all. If I can't tell, man, they going crazy on the fireworks out there. It's going dumb right now. Here we go. Don't worry about nothing, y'all. I don't know, man. It's not letting me do it. So we'll just go without the graphic for right now. I'll continue to work on the graphic as I'm talking about it. But Coach Dwayne Taylor and what he has, we'll start off with Zay Moore. Zay Moore was the starter of this receiving group, this outlaw receiving group. And with this outlaw receiving group, we saw a bunch of dogs, man. A bunch of guys that honestly are like number one receivers. You want a gang of number one receivers. You want guys that can stretch the field. You give them the rock, they just make plays, right? You just put the ball out there, roll the ball out there, and let them make their own plays. And that's him. Is that it? That's I'm trying to get this graphic now. I'm not sure, y'all. I think somebody's up against me right now. Got it. All right, here we go. Sorry about the way, y'all. But here we go. Zay Moore. Zay Moore was the guy at receiver for Alabama A&M to start. He set this whole pace. He started 2017 and then 2021. He's the kind of like the original guy. He was able to accumulate 1,200 receiving yards throughout his career, also accumulate 10 touchdowns. He did not have a year of receiving over 400 yards, but he was a tone setter for this Alabama A&M receiving corps. He was one of the first guys out here doing it. He was the original wide receiver one. He got there a year before Coach DeJuan Taylor. Coach DeJuan Taylor got to Alabama A&M in 2018. So from Zay Moore, we have Tank Dell in 2018. Tank Dell he enters into Alabama A&M, plays a couple games, wins the Gulf Coast Classic as an MVP, is one of the best receivers at Alabama A&M, but it doesn't work out. He ends up transferring to a junior college, then transfers from there to Houston, University of Houston, where he balls out, ends up getting drafted this past year. Another guy with great talent that was at Alabama A&M, doing his thing, quite honestly. He got in, and he was able to make a difference as a freshman, which is pretty big. Now, going from Tank Dell, and I'll also name the stats too. He had 12 receptions, only 12 receptions, for 364 yards. He averaged 91 yards a game with 12 catches. Only played in 4 games. Just leave that there. Okay, so then we have another guy who I consider the rock of this receiving corps, which is Brian Juice Jenkins. He was the receiver who was there the entire duration of Akil Glass's career. Entire duration of it. All, I believe, 5 years. He is the rock for this receiving corps. He is the guy that bridges the years between Zay Moore and Odu and Abdul Fattah Ibrahim. He bridges those gaps. He is the leader in this receiving group for some time, even through COVID. He is the leader through this receiving group. He recorded 48 catches for 470 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with 6 rushes for 21 yards his freshman season. He had a very big breakout freshman season. Consistently, he stayed around the 300 to 400 yard range throughout his career at Alabama A&M, and now, as of recent, he has transferred for his graduate senior season, but he put in so much time for his Alabama A&M team, almost 5 years in playing experience. He was able to bridge the gap to guys like Odu Hilaire, who ended up really breaking the glass ceiling for Alabama A&M receivers. So when Odu Hilaire came, Odu Hilaire in 2021 caught 71 catches for 918 yards, 9 touchdowns. He averaged 91 yards a game. He was the game breaker at Alabama A&M. Another guy that went with him, I spoke about him earlier, is Abdul Fattah Ibrahim. Abdul Fattah Ibrahim in 2021 caught 67 catches for 1,008 yards, 8 touchdowns. These two guys completely broke the ceilings. They were some of Akil Glass's highest receivers. They led the team in receiving yards and really led the SWAC in receiving yards in 2021. They completely ripped everything up. They were the best examples of this outlaw receiving group. That is exactly what Coach DeJuan Taylor had been working towards since 2018, was to be able to get together a group of guys that can almost pair together for 1,000 yards. So this outlaw receiving group is A1. There's not so many other receiving groups that's going to be better. I'm not saying that this is the best wide receiver group in HBCU football, but this is definitely one of them. Coach DeJuan Taylor knows how to develop talent, knows how to find talent, spot talent, and get it to come to his school. Proof is in the details. Just look at the names, check out some of the numbers. So I finally got that graphic together. That was kind of irking me, not going front. So there we go. Another guy. We got a big decommit. So HBCU on the move. A big decommit. Isaiah Pedack decommits from Florida A&M amid a family emergency. So if you don't know, Isaiah Pedack, he committed to FAMU in about March. I believe like March 23rd. Now, fast forward from March 27th. He decommits about 3 days ago in late June, last week in June. And he says that he has a family member that's having some health issues. He's going to have to return back home and reopen his recruiting. First off, prayers to his family members, and hopefully everything is fine. As a student athlete, the last thing you want to have to worry about is keeping your family healthy while you're out there trying to chase your dreams and make better for your family. So completely understand. Now, from a realistic standpoint, where's he going to go, right? What's the new question now, where's he going to go? Because he's actually a pretty good defensive lineman. Last year at Cisco Junior College, he recorded 79 tackles, 40 solo takedowns, and in just he only played 9 games. So he's a pretty good player. He's going to help this Florida A&M defense, and he can help another defense in HBCU football. Because you know what? Other HBCU teams offered him. You know it. So Grambling offered him, and Prairie View A&M also offered him. They threw their bids in. Another school that threw their bid in was Louisiana Monroe. Now, the biggest question is, how close to home does Isaiah have to be? Because Louisiana is substantially farther from Texas than Prairie View A&M is. You feel me? To me, Prairie View A&M still being in the same state that he's going to be in, not too far from where he's going to be, might be a prime destination, especially understanding that Coach Bubba McDowell and his defensive lines have been great for the past 3 years. Even Coach Eric Dooley, and he had Jason Dumas on the defensive line, has looked pretty good. This Prairie View defensive line throughout the past 3 years have looked good. Attracting another defensive lineman like this would be right up their alley. I think that's something that we should take a look at. Take a look at his recruiting. It's very interesting to see how his recruiting will change, knowing that it is so late in the season, in the cycle. We even see a lot of HBCU players are beginning to get back on the campus. People are getting back into their dorms. People are getting ready for summer camp, going through drills since last week. So since we're so late in this process, you got to think that Isaiah is going to make his decision pretty soon, understanding that fall camp is right around the corner. SWAC Media Day, MEAG Media Day is right around the corner, and summer practices is probably already underway. It's all right. So now we're getting to our infamous 2-minute drill, right? So I'm starting this up. This is a new little deal. This is going to be the last part of every episode going forward, and we're going to start off today talking about Langston. Langston University, they have a new NIL deal. This is one of my favorite NIL type of deals. They have this whole marketplace set up. It's super dope. They are partners now with Open Doors for an NIL program with an easy-to-use system. This easy-to-use system is like basically pay to play. You pick who you want to pay, and you pay them, right? So let's scroll. Say we're just scrolling on this list trying to figure out who to pay. We go, I like Brian Hansper. I like this dude. I want to give him some money for something, man. So you click the link. It opens up. Now, you see here. This is the right side of the screen. Shout out, $28. Brian will record a video for you. You got even more options. You do a post. Brian will post on social media for you, $36. Appearance. Brian will attend your practice or event for $158. It's straightforward. I mean, I don't know who's paying for Brian to come pull up to the event for $158, but if somebody wants to, you can do it. I like this straightforward approach because even on this left side here, you got your biography, tell you exactly what Brian is, affiliations, accolades, location, background. You get it all. But most importantly, there's no smoke and mirrors in this NIL program. A lot of times in NIL, we see a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's never straightforward, and we're unsure how these players are supposed to get money, if they're getting the money, and if they're getting the money from a source that isn't crooked. In this case, it is super straightforward. There is not much you have to fight. There isn't too much looking around you got to do, snooping around you got to do to understand that this money should be going straight to the players. One click should send money to the players as easy as I could send money to a GoFundMe, which is beautiful. So I like this a lot. Shout out to Langston University. Shout out to Open Doors and what they have going on. You could go check out opendoors.com and go check out Langston University NIL Marketplace. And if you do that, all this will come up here. Players from different programs are all here, and you can spend your NIL money with them. So, speaking of good things, Alabama A&M now has these new dog houses on the side of the stadium. They're inside the stadium, on the side of the field rather. I don't have a problem with this. This is kind of cool. If you don't know, University of Southern California, USC, has something similar to this in their own end zone. They aren't dog houses, but there is it's like a bar and grill essentially. You've probably seen YG hanging out up there before. Whereas at the end of the end zone, there's a big gate wall, and the rest of the end zone is for VIP only. So this is probably VIP only. People asking like, what is this for? What is this for? It's for VIP.
Welcome to the Bulldog Bite. I am your athletic director, Paul A. Bryant. Sitting here on the
I love that dude's energy, man.
one of the dog houses in the kennel community. It's an exciting time. We need you to come out and support. It is still Drive for 55. We're trying to sell 5,500 season tickets, but we can't do it without you. And as always, go Bulldogs.
All right, so I want to kind of get a nice little look at them dog houses. It's a good look there from the front. From the side. There we go. So yeah, this is it. They're gonna be these new dog houses on the inside of Alabama A&M Stadium. I think it's dope. I think it's lit. Making more luxury type builds and like bars and clubs and things. Not clubs, but like bars, VIP lounges inside of stadiums. That's how you get your money. You want to ask an NFL stadium how they make money? It's going to be off the press box seats. It's going to be off the luxury items. It's going to be off the luxury box. It's going to be off the courtside seats. Alabama A&M introducing this into their way of thinking is forward thinking. It's forward thinking. If you think that you're just going to make a gang of money and continue to sit on your laurels and rest on your laurels just on the fact that people are paying $25 tickets, you can stay stuck in the past if you want. But college football nowadays, it's a little luxury in there. It's a little razzle dazzle in there. College football fans and quite honestly, the donors, the people that pay money for college football want to be in luxury, man, because they love their college football. How can they sit and watch it the most comfortable? Something like a doghouse would be great. This would be great for boosters, great for donors, great for alums. Win-win. Kudos to Alabama A&M in doing this. So that wraps up my 2-minute drill. It's my episode for this week, you guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties towards the middle, but I know, one-man band. I'm making do what it do, but don't worry about nothing. Another episode of HBCU Flicks in the can. Stay tuned this week for some more 323 Thursdays. I'm going to have an interview, special guest interview, but it's going to be with my boy Jelani Eason, Mississippi Valley State, former quarterback. If you didn't know, we also went to the same high school at the same time. So we'll get into that. Stay tuned. Subscribe. Like this post. Comment. Let's talk about some stuff, man. But I'm out. It's your boy Kelly Flicks.